To patties cooked in a grease puddle older than Mr. Krabs himself, to random explosions that seem to happen for no reason, the Krusty Krab is less a restaurant and more a game of how long can you survive. So grab your hazard suits because we're about to uncover why dining here might cost you more than your wallet. Now, if you thought the Krusty Krab was bad with Mr. Krabs around, Mutiny on the Krusty shows us just how much worse things get when SpongeBob takes charge. Let's just say this episode gives Sink or Swim a whole new meaning, literally. Bikini Bottom citizens are battening down the hatches for a rip current storm, like sensible people. But Mr. Krabs? Oh, he's not worried about public safety. He's too busy barking at his employees to get back to work. When the peeps ask if the Krusty Krab is in danger, Krabs dismisses their concerns and doubles down on his mantra.
Excuse me, are we in any kind of peril?
I think we should all go home.
He even traps his customers inside, declaring that no one's leaving until they order something. Somewhere, a labor lawyer is weeping. When our spongy boy wonders why Krabs is extra crusty today, Squidward drops the tea. It's payday, a day Mr. Krabs bloody loathes because he has to part with money. So naturally, Krabs announces he's not paying anyone. Instead, he pulls the "I'm the captain now" card, declaring absolute rule over the restaurant. This power trip makes him even crankier, which leads to... A sunken ship's anchor hooks onto the Krusty Krab and drags the entire building into the rip current. Yippee! Turns out Krabs' arthritis threw off his storm detector. Yeah, of course it did. SpongeBob manages to steer the restaurant to safety, earning applause from the customers and a mutiny against Krabs. The patrons declare Squidward their new captain, while Krabs sulks in the corner, plotting revenge like a salty toddler. The Krusty Krab crash lands in a forest, and things go from bad to absolute hellscape when a giant monster shows up and starts wrecking everything. Squidward, newly crowned captain, gets yeeted into the monster's mouth because the customers demand he protect them. It's utter chaos, but Krabs' response?
Oh, welcome back, Captain.
Haven't you forgotten something? I am not captain anymore. Squidward is.
Yep, he refuses to help unless they promise to spend all their money at the Krusty Krab. Typical. SpongeBob finally convinces Krabs, reluctantly springs into action, defeats the beast, and frees Squidward, but only after securing promises of financial loyalty from the customers. As the episode ends, Krabs and SpongeBob ride triumphantly on the roof of the restaurant while Squidward and the customers are left hauling the Krusty Krab back to Bikini Bottom. I'm sure that won't end in lawsuits. Let's break down the literal crimes Mr. Krabs committed here, along with the punishments he'd face if Bikini Bottom had any functioning legal system. Health code violations. Crimes committed, the Krusty Krab was dragged through a rip current filled with debris and then parked in a forest, none of which screams sanitary kitchen conditions. Add in SpongeBob preparing food amid all this chaos, and you've got contamination galore. Punishments? Fines $1,000+ for each health violation. Closure, immediate shutdown until the entire place is deep cleaned and passes inspection. Criminal charges. If customers got sick, Krabs could face misdemeanor charges and potential jail time. Unsafe food handling. Crimes committed. SpongeBob's cooking techniques might be artistic, but during this episode, the food is definitely at risk of contamination. Handling food in unsanitary conditions could lead to major outbreaks of foodborne illness. Potential punishments? Fines $500 to $5,000 per incident. Increased inspections. Surprise visits from the health inspectors would become the norm. Public backlash, the Krusty Krab's reputation would take a nosedive, driving away customers. In conclusion, the Krusty Krab isn't just unsafe, it's a ticking time bomb of legal, ethical, and hygienic disasters. If this episode teaches us anything, it's that Mr. Krabs values his wallet far more than the safety of his employees or customers. And honestly, that's the real monster here. Next, let's dive into Employee of the Month, where SpongeBob's obsession with perfection doesn't just cross the line, it blows it up entirely. Turns out turning the Krusty Krab into a battleground isn't great for customer safety. Who knew? Oh boy, SpongeBob is back at it with his favorite thing in the world, validation from his crustaceous overlord, Mr. Krabs. The Employee of the Month award is up for grabs again, and SpongeBob is practically vibrating with excitement. But Squidward, the cynical realist here, or lazy pessimist depending on your perspective, drops a truth bomb.
SpongeBob, don't you know that award is a scam?
What do you mean?
Mr. Krabs gives you that award so you'll work harder for no extra money.
That is not true, Squidward. He gives it to me because I work harder. You could win it too if you tried harder.
Our spongy boy refuses to believe it, though. Instead, he accuses Squidward of lacking work ethic. Oh, the irony. When Mr. Krabs plants the idea that Squidward could win the award, SpongeBob goes full paranoid. And naturally, this escalates into full-blown warfare. SpongeBob kicks off the shenanigans by sneaking into Squidward's house at night to sabotage his alarm clock. Breaking and entering? Casual. Squidward catches him in the act, and their mutual disdain explodes into a declaration of war. From here, it's a slapstick arms race with some shitty serenading on the side.
Look at him, watching me.
I'm watching you, SpongeBob. You're not leaving before me.
Hey, Squidward, getting sleepy, huh?
No, how about you?
Nope.
Squidward tries to sneak to the Krusty Krab, but falls into a hole SpongeBob dug like some deranged Wile E. Coyote. SpongeBob, meanwhile, literally saws through his own door to keep pace. By the time morning rolls around, they've turned the journey to work into the Hunger Games Bikini Bottom edition. When they finally reach the Krusty Krab, these two lunatics are so sleep-deprived and feral that they destroy the entire restaurant in their bid to impress Mr. Krabs. Krabby Patties pile up like an avalanche and the building explodes into smithereens. The episode ends with SpongeBob and Squidward begging Krabs to pick a winner while... Let's talk crimes and punishment, shall we? Health code violations. The Krusty Krab is now a biohazard. Between the mess in the kitchen and the destruction of supplies, this place is a health inspector's nightmare. Potential punishment? Fines up to several $1,000s, suspension of the operating license, and increased health inspections. Good luck recovering from that, Mr. Krabs. Unsafe food handling. SpongeBob and Squidward's frantic patty making is a recipe for contamination. Literal disaster in every bite. Potential punishment? Fines from $500 to thousands of dollars. If someone gets food poisoning, lawsuits are coming in hot. Maybe Squidward was right about the award being a scam, but good luck convincing SpongeBob to see reason. He's already planning next month's Employee of the Month Battle Royale. In Safe Deposit Krabs, Mr. Krabs' greed doesn't just put himself in danger, it drags SpongeBob into the madness too. Turns out being loyal to your boss might just get you trapped in a vault with no escape plan. Let's start with Mr. Krabs catching the whiff of free interest and immediately sprinting to the bank of Bikini Bottom Bank. Yes, they really named it that. Turns out a bank full of money is like a buffet for Mr. Krabs' soul. He just can't help himself.
Thanks for banking with Bank of Bikini Bottom Bank. And here's your instant interest.
His obsession triggers the bank employees who mistake him for a robber. He thinks a disguise will solve everything, but his mustache fails to distract anyone, and his woman of mystery getup only lands him in the deposit line. Now here's the kicker in the nutsack. He deposits one single bloody penny. You can almost hear the pennies screaming in pain as they leave his claws. During his dramatic goodbye, Krabs falls into the bank's vault, which is conveniently big enough to hold a whole money-themed restaurant, Bank of Bikini Bottom, where OSHA violations go to die. Meanwhile, SpongeBob realizes Krabs is missing and recruits Patrick for a bank heist. Patrick is initially shocked, until he decides crime is fun. Cut to Mr. Krabs hallucinating on the brink of suffocation. SpongeBob finally finds Mr. Krabs mid-destruction, and the bank guard kicks them both out, along with Krabs' precious penny. In the end, Krabs is ecstatic because doubling his money from 1 to 2 cents is the only math he respects. Roll credits. Crimes and fines. Health code violations. Offense, transforming the bank vault into a money-themed restaurant. Hygiene, never heard of her. Potential punishments, fines up to $5,000, a license suspension, and enough health inspections to give Gordon Ramsay nightmares. Negligent endangerment. Offense, crawling into a bank vault with no oxygen. Did someone say suffocation hazard? Potential punishments, misdemeanor charges, $2,500 fine, and a stern lecture on not turning your life into a Final Destination scene. And that's before the therapy bills for the bank employees. Next up, The Krusty Plate, an episode that shows how SpongeBob's quest for spotless perfection turns the Krusty Krab into a danger zone. Let's just say if you're dining here, maybe avoid the plates altogether. The episode kicks off with Mr. Krabs closing the Krusty Krab, mumbling,
Thought those deadbeats would never leave. Closing time, SpongeBob!
There you go, little buddy. Now everybody's all clean and ready for Betty Bob.
relatable energy. Meanwhile, SpongeBob is in the kitchen wrapping up his dishwashing duties, but Krabs notices a speck of dirt on one plate. The audacity! So SpongeBob's not allowed to leave until he obliterates this microscopic stain. Before exiting, Mr. Krabs reassures SpongeBob that this time there's no risk of him accidentally torching the place. Why? Because Mr. Krabs, in a rare moment of foresight, removed all welding equipment after the roller skates and blowtorch fiasco of yore. A sentence that somehow makes perfect sense in this universe. The battle begins. By this point, SpongeBob is wheezing, wild-eyed, and spit-polishing the plate like a madman. Desperate, he declares,
I am afraid this is the last time we'll be meeting like this, my friend. Allow me to introduce you to the Spotmaster 6000. Notice the microwave-powered laser particle beam.
Cue ominous music. So, our spongy boy in full military regalia is flanked by his latest abomination of cleaning technology, the Spotmaster 6000. He fires everything at the spot, unleashing pure cleaning chaos.
Water cannon on! No effect. Steel-wool laser on!
Strange vortex in the west.
Krabs, observing this madness from his bedroom, shrugs it off with the grand finale. SpongeBob cranks the Spotmaster 6000 to maximum power. Yeah, that's always the right answer. He crosses the laser beams, Ghostbusters rules be damned, and obliterates the entire Krusty Krab in an explosion that rivals Bikini Atoll. When the dust settles, the restaurant is rubble, the Spotmaster 6000 is vaporized, and the plate, spotless. But Mr. Krabs? Oh, he's fuming. The man's life savings just got turned into kindling, and now he's chasing SpongeBob through the ruins. Health code violations. A filthy plate left sitting around, that's a direct hit to the health department's do not mess with this list. Potential punishments? Fines ranging from $5,000 to thousands, plus possible suspension of the Krusty Krab's operating license, extra inspections for life. Unsafe food handling. If SpongeBob's plate cleaning dramatics indicate anything, it's that hygiene standards are on thin ice here. Potential punishment? Fines up to several $1,000s, and if a customer gets sick, Mr. Krabs could face lawsuits and payouts that'll make his wallet cry. In the Krabby Chronicle, SpongeBob and Patrick's attempt at journalism turns the Krusty Krab into the site of a full-scale media meltdown. Spoiler, getting the story might just cost them their jobs, and maybe their lives. Our tale begins with Krabs discovering that his microscopic Krusty Krab ad in the Bikini Bottom Examiner has yielded exactly 0 new customers. Shocked and appalled, he hits the streets, only to find out that everyone's glued to a juicier, more scandalous rag called the Bottom Feeder. Turns out the secret to selling papers isn't the truth, it's sensationalized nonsense. And at 25 cents a word, Mr. Krabs smells profit. Next thing you know, the Krusty Krab's turned into a tabloid empire with SpongeBob as its naive lead reporter. SpongeBob, being SpongeBob, starts off reporting innocent, wholesome stories, like Patrick staring at a pole for reasons. But nobody's buying this snooze fest, and that's just the beginning. Soon, SpongeBob is forced to churn out hit pieces that ruin lives. Mrs. Puff's reputation as a boating teacher, shredded. Larry the Lobster, banned from the gym. Sandy, stripped of her science trophies. Plankton, shut down by a fake health inspector. Our spongy boy feels awful about it. He tries to get Krabs to stop, but the cheapskate threatens to take away his beloved spatula. Finally, SpongeBob does what any morally conflicted hero would do.
You really outdone yourself this time.
Mr. Krabs, I can't write these stories anymore.
Come on, that's a bunch of hooey.
The next day, an angry mob storms the Krusty Krab demanding refunds and retribution. Mr. Krab's reaction? Yep, crying over his lost money like a big crabby baby. But does he learn his lesson? Of course not. This episode ends with him plotting to use his printing press for counterfeit money, while Patrick, now actually married to the pole, orders a Krabby Patty for two. Let's break down the charges against Mr. Krabs, who's racked up more legal violations than an unscrupulous influencer. False advertising. Description: public sensationalized and outright false stories in the Krabby Chronicle to boost sales. Potential punishments: fines $1,000 to $5,000. Reputation damage that could tank the Krusty Krab's business. Defamation. Description: ruining reputations with fabricated stories about Mrs. Puff, Larry, Sandy, and others. Potential punishments: lawsuits. Potential financial penalties could range from thousands to millions depending on damages. Legal fees: defending against defamation claims isn't cheap. While Patrick's pole romance is the absurd cherry on top, the real takeaway is that Bikini Bottom's most dangerous predator isn't a shark, it's the Krusty Krab and its greedy AF owner. Now let's talk Squilliam Returns, where Squidward's ego doesn't just get in the way, it nearly gets everyone in the Krusty Krab fired. Spoiler alert, when Squilliam's around, you're more likely to catch a face full of danger than a gourmet meal. Squidward's lunch break takes a turn for the melodramatic when his old rival, Squilliam Fancyson, struts into town with his entourage of bootlickers. Squilliam immediately stirs up the inferiority complex pot, flexing his fabulous wealth and asking the most devastating question. Squidward panics and imagines Squilliam in underwear. Ew. Squilliam, smelling blood, promises to visit said restaurant that very evening, leaving Squidward in a puddle of terror. Back at the Krusty Krab, Squidward convinces Mr. Krabs to hand over control of the place for the night. Capitalism, baby! Squidward transforms into the Gordon Ramsay of chaos. Patrick, as always, inserts himself into the drama, thinking this is military boot camp. His job? Collecting hats. His approach?
I said give it to me! Are you gonna hand it over or not? Don't you backsash me!
Meanwhile, SpongeBob is drowning in a copy of How to Become a Fancy Waiter in Less Than 20 Minutes, and Mr. Krab's cooking skills turn out to be more SS Dumpster Fire than SS Gourmet. In a desperate bid to make SpongeBob less SpongeBob, Squidward orders him to focus on nothing but fine dining and breathing. Inside SpongeBob's brain, mini SpongeBobs frantically delete every file that doesn't scream Michelin star service. Things almost go well, until Squilliam asks SpongeBob for his name. SpongeBob's brain implodes, my dudes, and he descends into an unhinged frenzy, grating people's butts and spilling food on guests. Meanwhile, the appetizer Mr. Krabs made earlier mutates into a monster with a human foot and starts chasing everyone. Squilliam and his entourage witness the Krusty Krab unravel into its usual madness. Squidward finally admits he's just a cashier, but Squilliam's parting jab, "Just kidding, I am filthy rich," leaves Squidward crushed. Mr. Krabs plays the world's smallest violin to cap off Squidward's humiliation. The Krusty Krab crew's night of delusion isn't just embarrassing, it's borderline illegal. Let's break down the charges. False representation, Squidward. Lying about owning a restaurant? Classic fraud. Fines? $1,000 to $5,000 and the obliteration of Squidward's fragile reputation. Health code violations, Mr. Krabs. Fly-infested appetizers and canned peas fresh from the oven? Bikini Bottom's health inspector would faint. Fines? $500 to $5,000 or a license suspension. If Squidward learned anything, it's this. Never try to outflex Squilliam Fancyson. At least we got a meme-worthy moment with, oh no, he's hot. In Nasty Patty, SpongeBob and Squidward's attempt to make a perfect Krabby Patty goes horribly wrong, and what was supposed to be lunch quickly becomes a crime scene. This episode serves up some of the nastiest, most hazardous food you could imagine. It all begins on a sunny day when an actual health inspector shows up for a surprise review. Mr. Krabs assumes this guy is a scammer looking for free food. After seeing a news report about a fake inspector conning restaurants, Krabs and SpongeBob channel their inner evil geniuses. The Nasty Patty is loaded with toenail clippings, toilet water, and dried gym sock stank, then topped off with enough volcano sauce to annihilate taste buds. But here's where things spiral. Before the inspector can even touch the abomination, he chokes on a fly, trips, and gets knocked unconscious. Krabs and SpongeBob immediately assume they've killed him.
Because that patty killed him!
The duo buries the poor guy on a hill, but when the cops arrive offering a ride back to the Krusty Krab, things just get messier. Through a series of hilariously stupid miscommunications, SpongeBob and Krabs try to smuggle the body into the freezer, all while behaving so suspiciously that even Bikini Bottom's clueless cops start to raise their eyebrows. The inspector eventually regains consciousness, but not before Krabs and SpongeBob confess to murder and nearly cause a riot in their own restaurant. Safety concerns highlighted. Health code violations. Krusty Krab isn't just bending the rules, they're taking a wrecking ball to them. From toenail clippings to toilet-drenched patties, the kitchen is practically a petri dish of foodborne illness waiting to happen. Customers may want to rethink ordering anything from this menu. Negligent endangerment. If you thought the nasty patty was bad, imagine the liability. Serving toxic sludge to a health inspector, or anyone, is a recipe for lawsuits and medical bills. Instead of ensuring customer safety, the Krusty Krab seems to prioritize cheap pranks. Now let's talk born-again Krabs, where Mr. Krabs' thirst for riches isn't just a small inconvenience, it's a full-on disaster waiting to happen. When he tries to get one over on a health inspector, it's not just the customers who are in danger, it's the whole restaurant. Our spongy boy finds an old AF Krabby Patty under the grill, so after a little mourning, he's about to chuck it away when Mr. Krabs refuses to throw out a moldy, blackened Krabby Patty that's been festering under the grill for who knows how bloody long. Instead, he commands our spongy boy to sell it, even after it has literally grown sentient and started growling. And when Mr. Krabs finally eats it himself, he immediately turns green and not the good kind. If that doesn't scream dangerous dining, what does? Mr. Krabs' greed spirals so far out of control that he's dragged to Davy Jones' locker by the Flying Dutchman himself. So now he's stuck in some hole with a literal locker that smells dang rancid, bras. Turns out it's stinky socks. Worst nightmare for our Krabs, apparently. And old Davy is ordering this crustacean to scoot his boot in there so he can lock him up. Krabs begs for his life. Davy is begging him to have some dignity. Then, lo and behold, Krabs sobbing earns him a second chance. Of course, Krabs swears he'll never be cheap again. I'm not buying it. Back at the Krusty Krab, Squidward and SpongeBob are bonding over shared grief. Or at least SpongeBob is.
Edward, you shouldn't be going through Mr. Krabs' belongings. He won't like it.
The Krusty Krab reopens its doors, and we witness the new and improved Krabs handing out free toys like candy, letting Squidward nap in his office, and giving new Krabby Patties to clumsy customers. Until Krabs has to pay the bills, and we all realize he thought he was dreaming. Back to Davy Jones' locker for Mr. Krabs. Serves him right. But thankfully, SpongeBob saves his crusty hide. Exhibit A for why this place needs a health inspector on permanent standby. Potential consequences. Fines. The Krusty Krab could be slapped with fines ranging from $500 to several $1,000s for serving spoiled food. License suspension. Repeat offenses like this could result in the restaurant being shut down until it proves it can meet basic health standards. Reputation damage. News of the growling patty incident would spread faster than Squidward's sarcasm, permanently scarring the restaurant's reputation. Negligent endangerment. A side of danger with your meal. What if a customer had eaten that patty? The Krusty Krab could have been looking at lawsuits for food poisoning or worse. Potential consequences? Misdemeanor charges. Mr. Krabs could face charges with fines up to $2,500 for recklessly endangering public health. Civil liability. If anyone got sick from the patty, the Krusty Krab could be sued into oblivion. Whether it's selling spoiled food or gambling with SpongeBob's soul, Mr. Krabs proves time and again that he's willing to cut corners no matter the cost. Finally, let's wrap up with the Krusty Krab training video, where we get a glimpse of how the Krusty Krab trains its staff, and spoiler alert, it's not exactly OSHA approved. Between the questionable techniques and the sheer chaos, this training video might just be the most dangerous thing on the menu. The video kicks off with Mr. Krab's backstory, a rags to riches tale of turning a bankrupt retirement home into the Krusty Krab. But let's not gloss over the subtle flex here. He brags about leveraging a post-war depression into building his empire. Sure, capitalism thrives on opportunity, but this origin story reeks of exploitation. It's clear the only thing he respects more than money is the nostalgia of screwing someone over to get it. The training video introduces POOP, People Order Our Patties, a delightfully absurd acronym that somehow manages to sound more humiliating the more you say it.
It's actually a carefully organized code. Watch closely. People order our patties.
Ah, poop!
Looks like Mr. SquarePants understands poop.
SpongeBob, the enthusiastic role model, beams with pride and delulu, while Squidward barely holds back an eye roll so powerful it could cause a blackout. It's a great reminder that this workplace is split into two types of employees, those who have guzzled the Kool-Aid and those who are choking on the fumes. While the video emphasizes customer satisfaction, Krabs himself is conspicuously absent from this equation. His obsession with profit overshadows the principles POOP allegedly stands for, raising questions about whether the Krusty Krab's mission statement is just corporate fluff designed to manipulate naive recruits like SpongeBob. We get a lengthy montage of the importance of cleanliness, with SpongeBob demonstrating proper hand-washing techniques while Squidward gets dragged as the cautionary tale. While this part is probably the most solid advice in the video, the Krusty Krab's history with moldy patties casts doubt on how strictly these rules are enforced. In fact, this feels more like a CYA move to avoid health inspectors rather than genuine concern for public safety. Training or trauma? The video quickly devolves into a circus of poor management practices masquerading as guidance. Take the section on interfacing with your boss, which boils down to don't even think about asking for a raise. There's also a weirdly detailed segment on protecting the Krabby Patty recipe from plankton, emphasizing that your priority isn't the customer, the workspace, or even your own dignity. It's safeguarding Mr. Krab's cash cow at all costs. Speaking of priorities, how about a section on how Mr. Krabs prioritizes profit over employee well-being? With SpongeBob nearly vibrating with enthusiasm and Squidward embodying existential dread, it's clear that mental health is as undervalued here as free soda refills. Corporate red flags? Negligent training practices. For all its talk of proper procedures, this training video is more style than substance. Relying on SpongeBob's enthusiasm and Squidward's disdain as teaching tools leaves new hires woefully unprepared for the chaos that is the Krusty Krab. If this were a real-world scenario, Mr. Krabs could face hefty fines for negligent training, especially if it led to workplace injuries or customer complaints. Punishments, up to $2,500 in fines, potential civil liability, and a mandatory overhaul of the training process. False advertising. Let's not ignore the blatant overpromising. The video paints the Krusty Krab as a pinnacle of workplace excellence, conveniently glossing over Mr. Krab's penny-pinching ways and Squidward's palpable misery. The misrepresentation could easily qualify as false advertising. Any prospective employees who signed up based on this propaganda would be in for a rude awakening. Punishments, $1,000 to $5,000 in fines, and a major PR nightmare if exposed. The final verdict? The Krusty Krab training video is equal parts hilarious and horrifying, showcasing a workplace where employees are either brainwashed, SpongeBob, or broken, Squidward.